Welcome to the Purposeful Wealth Podcast, the go-to podcast on how to bring clarity, contentment and certainty to your financial life. Brought to you by Jonathan Gibson, founder of Wells Gibson and author of the Purposeful Wealth book. Pick up your copy of Purposeful Wealth on Amazon and please enjoy this show.
Welcome to the Purposeful Wealth podcast, and today's episode we're going to consider the subject being a formula for success. But before we look at that, thank you again to all of our listeners who tune into the Purposeful Wealth podcast. I've made apologies before that the recordings haven't been maybe as frequent as we would have liked, and the library hasn't been updated. That's just largely been due to the other competing factors such as family and business, and perhaps also the good weather we've had of late and being able to enjoy a walk around the golf course. Can't say that it's been great rounds of golf, but it's certainly a good walk, if nothing else. But we can blame the weather for that too. But today we're going to consider a formula for success, and really want to just talk about the fact that combining an enduring investment philosophy with a simple formula that helps maintain investment discipline can increase the odds of having a positive financial experience. So if you want to increase the odds of having a positive financial experience, it's important to ensure you start with a enduring, robust investment philosophy with a simple formula that helps maintain our discipline as an investor. David Booth, the founder and chairman of the American fund manager Dimensional Fund Advisors, once said the important thing about an investment philosophy is that you have one you can stick with. So I would agree with that 100% entirely. However, what is an enduring investment philosophy? Investing, as you know, should be and is a long-term endeavor. Indeed, people will spend decades pursuing their financial goals, but being an investor, as you know, can be complicated, challenging, frustrating, and sometimes frightening. This is exactly why, as David Booth says, it is important to have an investment philosophy you can stick with, one that can help you stay the course. This simple idea highlights an important question. How can we, as investors, maintain discipline through optimistic markets or bull markets, the pessimistic markets or the bear markets, political strife, economic instability, or whatever crisis of the day threatens progress towards our investment goals? Over our lifetimes, us investors face many decisions prompted by events that are both within and outside our control. So without an enduring investment philosophy to help inform our choices, we can potentially suffer unnecessary anxiety, which then leads to poor decisions and outcomes that, of course, are damaging to our long-term financial well-being. When we don't get the results we want, it's true that investors, or us as investors, can blame things outside of our control. Investors might point the finger at the government or central banks or markets or the economy. Unfortunately, the majority will not do the things that might be more beneficial, such as evaluating and reflecting on their own responses to events and ultimately taking responsibility for their decisions. Some people suggest that among the characteristics that separate highly successful people from the rest of us is a focus on influencing outcomes by controlling one's response or reaction to events rather than the events themselves. And this relationship can be described using a simple formula. And it is this formula, I love this, that E plus R equals O. So the E is the event, the R is response, and the O is outcome. So the event plus response equals the outcome. And if we apply that to investing, so whatever the event is, whether it be an economic event, our response when added to that event is going to determine the outcome. Simply put, this means that an outcome, either positive or negative, is the result of how we respond to an event, not just the result of the event itself. Of course, events are important, and influence outcomes, but not exclusively. If this were the case, everyone would have the same outcome regardless of their response. So let's think about this concept in a hypothetical investment context. Say that a major political surprise, such as Brexit, causes the market to fall. That's the event. In a panic response, potentially fueled by gloomy media speculation of the resulting uncertainty, an investor sells some or all of his or her investment. That becomes the response. Lacking a long-term perspective and reacting to the short-term news, our investor misses out on the subsequent market recovery and suffers anxiety about when or if to get back into, leading to suboptimal investment returns. So the important thing is that whatever the event, the important thing is not to react to short-term news. It's important to ensure you remain with a long-term perspective. Make sure that you don't miss out on the subsequent market recovery, because if you do that, it's going to probably bring around anxiety, which nobody likes. Certainly I don't like. And of course, the difficulty is if we do react to these difficult times, which markets do experience, and we do that catastrophic thing and sell down our portfolio and go back into cash, the problem is when you feel the time is ready to go back into the markets. So to see the same hypothetical example from a different perspective, a surprise event can cause markets to fall suddenly, being the event, and based on investors' understanding of the long-term nature of returns and the short-term nature of volatility, which spikes around these events, an investor is able to control his or her emotions, in other words, response, and maintain investment discipline, which should lead to higher chance of a successful long-term outcome. So that formula of event plus response will determine the outcome is so important, that our response, particularly to volatility and to market uncertainty, is not to panic as opposed to staying the course, which is clearly always the important thing when it comes to investing. But I think this example reveals why having an investment philosophy is so important. And by understanding how markets work and maintaining a long-term perspective on past events, as investors, we should be able to focus on ensuring that our responses to these events are consistent with our long-term plan. Wells Gibson's enduring investment philosophy is built on solid principles backed by decades of empirical academic evidence. And examples of such principles might be that we trust that the prices are set to provide a fair expected return. We recognise the difference between investing and speculating, in that the majority of a portfolio's return come from the market. It's the market that does the heavy return lifting, and speculating only serves to increase cost and increase volatility. And it's important that principles like relying on the power of diversification to manage risk and increase the reliability of outcomes, and benchmarking your progress against your own realistic long-term investment goals, these are the key principles that matter. So combined, these principles might help us to react better to market events, even when those events are globally significant, or when, as some might suggest, a paradigm shift has occurred, leading to claims that, oh, it's different this time. And that's something we hear quite often. So when COVID-19 happened and we saw that steep decline in the markets, or the value of the companies in the market, we heard it so many times, oh, it's different this time, as opposed to thinking this too will pass. This, the market's always been characterized by lots of different events, the Kennedy assassination, 9/11, the financial crisis. But these events, if we look at history, we can see that these circumstances do pass. So I think also adhering to these principles can also help us as investors resist the siren calls of new investment fads, or even worse, outright scams. And this is where I think there's the guiding hand of a trusted advisor, and why that's important. That without education and training, sometimes gained from bitter experience, it's really hard for non-investment professionals to develop an enduring investment philosophy. And as we've observed, even the most self-aware find it hard to manage their own responses to events And I think this is why a financial planner can be so valuable, that by providing the foundation of an investment philosophy and acting as an experienced coach or counsellor when responding to events. And so Wells Gibson has an enduring investment philosophy that all our clients have committed to. And it's this is the foundation for how we view the world of investing. We trust in the power of markets to deliver reliable returns over time. And we focus our efforts on helping our clients, we hope, benefit from as much of the return of the market as possible. We know that investing will always be both alluring and scary at times, but a view of how to approach investing combined with the guidance of a financial planning firm like Wells Gibson is more readily and more likely going to help people stay the course through these challenging times. At Wells Gibson, we certainly like to think we can provide an objective view and help investors separate emotions from investment decisions. And it's worth also adding, moreover, we feel obliged to educate, communicate, set realistic financial goals, and to help our clients deal with their responses, even during the most extreme market events. So in the spirit of the E plus R equals 0 formula, good financial planning and advice driven by a sound philosophy can go a long way to help increase the probability of you as an investor having a successful financial outcome. Thank you again for listening to the Purpose for Wealth podcast and today's episode where we looked at a formula for success. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Purposeful Wealth. Please remember to subscribe, review, and come back next week for your next instalment. You can also visit the wellsgibson.uk website for more information on bringing clarity, contentment, and certainty to your financial life.